Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who got here early, thanks for getting here and getting a good seat. We're going to get started at the top of the hour. Just a couple of housekeeping items. To open your chat window, click on the bottom toolbar, the lower end of your screen, and the chat icon will launch that chat. We do encourage you at this time to say hello and chat with other participants while we're waiting to begin. Do be sure that your chat is set to everyone so everyone can see. As a quick announcement, as indicated in the registration for this gathering, by attending the Zoom webinar, you acknowledge that this session will be recorded and may be used for future UAGC presentations. Welcome. Grab a cup of tea, water, or your beverage of choice, and our story will begin soon. Next slide, please. Before we begin, as indicated in the registration for this gathering, by attending the Zoom webinar, you acknowledge that this session will be recorded and may be used for future UAGC presentations. Welcome. We know you have many choices when selecting your professional development activities, and there are some amazing opportunities here at the University of Arizona Global Campus and beyond. We're happy that you chose to join us today as the UAGC Department of Education and Liberal Arts proudly presents to you Ed Talks. I'm Dr. Jessie Upshaw, and I'm honored to lead the Professional Development Committee of the Department of Education and Liberal Arts here in the UAGC College of Arts and Sciences. I'll be your host this afternoon. Today, we continue our 10th annual Ed Talks series with our 6th session. For those of you that are new to Ed Talks, this is not your traditional professional development webinar. Ed Talks are fashioned after TED Talks, the ever popular way of sharing concepts through personal narrative and storytelling. While many, if not all, of the personal stories of our Ed Talkers throughout the years tend to bring forward emotions, as sometimes we laugh, smile, cry, or feel empathy in a strong way. For this session, we want to let you know that the story you are about to listen to includes sensitive content that some individuals may find difficult to listen to. Our 2024 Ed Talk series is entitled Flourishing in Open Access Education, which examines supporting students and colleagues in open access environments through the lens of positive psychology. Each story takes the work of Martin Seligman's Flourish, a visionary new understanding of happiness and well-being, and considers the relationship between well-being and the contemporary culture of open access or open enrollment higher education. Here to explore and extend our journey towards supporting well-being with his story of Beyond Strength, Military Well-Being, it's Ed Talks host and coach, our very own Dr. Jackie Kiger. As you listen to Jackie's story, you might listen for your call to action to share your practices that promote growth and supporting well-being in your classroom and interactions with your students and your colleagues. Or perhaps you will find a new practice that his story or our discussion sparks for you. Jackie, will you come on camera and say hello as I introduce you? Oh, you're muted.
Hi, everybody. My pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jackie, who needs no introduction, yet I have a great one. Dr. Jackie Kiger had a career in the military before joining the ranks as an educator here at UAGC. He is a retired military officer, having served for 20 plus years in the U.S. Coast Guard. Jackie was a first responder for maritime law enforcement and search and rescue initiatives along the Gulf Coast and the Caribbean. He has been a part of hundreds of rescue missions and led counter-narcotic operations, where he was the commanding officer of the southernmost military unit along the U.S., Texas, and Mexico border, stopping millions of dollars of illegal drugs through known cartel trafficking corridors. His unit was recognized as the Unit of the Year by the Coast Guard Foundation Association. He's received accolades from Congress, U.S. Customs, and the U.S. Border Patrol as the on-scene commander for covert-overt joint operations. The U.S. Coast Guard is the only military branch to fall under the Department of Homeland Security, and as a result, Dr. Kiger has deployed with the United Nations, conducting corridor threat assessments between Croatia and Serbia as part of the enforcement of the Dayton Peace Accord. Dr. Kiger is a founding member of the Department of Homeland Security. As well as his duties as a professor here at UAGC and the College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Kiger is the faculty advisor for the UAGC Student Veterans of America chapter and the Salute Military National Honor Society. He's a member of the university's Military and Veteran Student Task Force. He's also the author of the Arcadia Press book, A Historical Narration, The Coast Guard on the Texas Border. A fun fact about Jackie, in his first duty station, it was in the Presidential Honor Guard in Washington, D.C. And he'll be the first to tell you that he did not receive that first assignment for any military ability or aptitude, but rather because he is 6'4", and they needed someone tall to stand at attention next to presidential doorways, hallways, and aircraft, which he did proudly. Along with his 10 years of support as a founder of Ed Talks, host, and coach, today will be Jackie's 12th Ed Talk story to share. So thank you, Dr. Kiger.
Thank you.
Jackie, I'm going to now ask that we remove our videos so we can get started after a few brief announcements. As a reminder, Ed Talks are fashioned after TED Talks, the ever popular way of sharing personal stories for only 18 minutes of monologue. We do this because we want to hear your stories, and we can best do that by sharing our stories. Our goal here is not necessarily to teach you anything new, as you are already the expert in your field. Our goal is to perhaps motivate you to try something new in your approach to helping your students succeed. Our storytelling approach is geared to not take a lot of your time, but rather to simply set the stage for an interactive conversation and perhaps encourage you to encourage your students in some new way. As I mentioned at the beginning of our time today, our 2024 Ed Talk series, Reflection and Extension, is inspired by the principles and work of Martin Seligman in his book Flourish. At the end of our Ed Talk today, we look forward to hearing your story of what you're doing or will do in your classroom or educational setting. After Dr. Kiger's story, we will invite all participants to share your reflection and practices. So with that, audience members, if you could please hold your comments and chat until the end as we listen to Jackie's story. Let's get started. Jackie, the microphone is yours.
Well, thank you. Please be mindful of these 3 questions. What does it mean when you let students try? How might you promote self-disclosure with your students? And lastly, are you Green Zone certified, and would you like to be? Keep them in mind as we return to them at the end of my story today. So hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. This Ed Talk is important because it's centered on our military students, and it's absolutely important as within that population of our military-affiliated student resides a very unique group, our active duty military student. Personally, this is especially important for me as I was once an active duty military student. But today's story, it's not my story. Rather, it's about one of our students. And I want to tell you this story as we consider the work of Dr. Martin Seligman around the idea of positive psychology, and specifically his book, Flourish. In his book, there's a whole chapter dedicated to being military strong in the way of comprehensive military fitness. Dr. Seligman was invited to the Pentagon by the then Chief of Staff of the Army, the legendary General George Casey, who wanted him to lead an initiative around a psychologically fit service. And it was simply based on resilience. Seligman worked with other experts in their fields of psychology, sociology, family science, and spirituality, and created an assessment tool with those 4 domains of emotional fitness, social fitness, family fitness, and spiritual fitness. Once they had the GAT assessment tool, GAT stands for Global Assessment Tool, the military went next to creating online courses for which the 4 fitnesses, as well as a course in post-traumatic growth, was created for all soldiers. The emotional fitness module is around the idea of the Losada ratio, simply where more positive thoughts than negative ones encourage positive psychological and social capital. The social fitness module that they created, this module was renamed the Social Resilience Module, as they wanted to encourage the capacity to foster, engage in, and sustain positive social relationships, and to endure and recover from stressors and social isolation. It's the glue that holds groups together, provides a purpose larger than the solitary self, and allows entire groups to rise to challenges. The family fitness module. Cell phones in war zones have proven to bring not only the comfort of the family, but also the thorns of home life onto the battlefield. This module was created from the Gottman's couples method, where disarming communication skills are taught, which increase intimacy, respect, and affection, and replace barriers of conflict with empathy and understanding. The spiritual fitness module. There's considerable evidence that a higher level of spirituality goes hand in hand with greater well-being, less mental illness, less substance abuse, and more stable relationships, not to mention better military performance. an advantage that is particularly salient when people face major adversity, such as combat. Now, the First Amendment of the Constitution forbids the government from establishing religion. And so the module, spiritual fitness, is not theological, but human. It takes no stand on the validity of religious or secular frameworks. Rather, it supports and encourages military personnel to search for truth, self-knowledge, right action, and purpose in life, living by a code that is rooted in belonging to and serving something the person believes is larger than self. It focuses on the individual's spiritual core, consisting of self-awareness, a sense of agency, self-regulation, self-motivation, and social awareness. The last module is a post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic growth module, but I'll leave that for our next ed talk when in August, Courtney Edmonds, the Senior Director of the Office of Graduate Studies and Academics here at UAGC, well, she'll lead us in a story and discussion around trauma transformation. I'm sharing this with you all because the Pentagon feels Salomon's work with the military around positive psychology is important, and so do we here at UAGC. We hope these fitness modules are represented in our UAGC culture of care through our pillars of communication, advocacy, respect, empowerment, and social-centered in our approach to helping students succeed, and that we create a safe space, a safe zone, a green zone for our students. A green zone is a military term for a safe space in an otherwise unknown area. Another thing we do here at UAGC is we provide a special kind of training to all of our student-facing staff and faculty in helping our military students succeed. It models the Pentagon's GAT assessment in several ways through its 6 modules and an assessment that leads you to being Green Zone certified by the university. Those 6 pillars are military introduction, transition, finance, service-connected disabilities, the student voice, and working with military-affiliated students. Our military-affiliated students include active duty service members, National Guard, reservists, veterans, spouses and dependents, civilian employees of the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Department of Defense, and civilian employees of the U.S. Coast Guard. At the beginning of my ed talk, I told you I would be focusing on a special group, our active duty group, our largest group of all of our military affiliated students. I want to talk to you them because it's important that we understand where they come from. Our active duty military student. They come from a place where they are living their military oath. And that oath is, I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to the regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so help me God. That last line being optional. Now, we have several active duty military students. They are all living that oath as we speak. Roughly 25% of our student population makes up our military affiliated students. And today, I want to tell you the story of one of those active duty students, one of our students. Jeremy was in high school when he made the decision to join the military upon graduation. He wanted to join the military as he grew up hearing stories and knowing that his grandfather had served in the United States Navy. Initially, Jeremy wanted to be in aviation, and specifically, he wanted to be a pilot. He was considering the United States Air Force. It was determined that his color blindness would not allow him to consider that a viable option. But he was determined to join the military upon graduation from high school. College was not in his future, and he considered his next steps in a post-high school life. After many conversations with several recruiters, he made a decision to join the Army. Jeremy graduated high school in June and immediately left for recruit training for boot camp in July. He took to the military experience like a duck takes to water. He served around the world and received many accolades, to include the Army Achievement Medal, not only once, but twice. He is designated a United States Cavalry Trooper and a graduate of the Airborne Air Assault School. Jeremy is a self-described lean, mean fighting machine. He loves the Army. He re-enlisted. But he also knew that doing the operational work that he was doing was a young person's game. He also knew he was a lifer, someone who was intent on making the military a career. Within his peer group, he noticed that some of his teammates were taking advantage of their active duty tuition assistance, and they were taking online classes even while being deployed. Jeremy did not know which school to apply to, and his teammates, well, they were taking classes with our university. So Jeremy followed their lead and signed up for online courses with us. And he loved it. He took to it like a duck takes to water. It was just the type of school he needed for his high-stream, low-drag military lifestyle. Jeremy's job was operational. He was not to the rear with the gear. His job required him to be forward on the pointy end of the operational spear. Jeremy, a fully dedicated soldier living his best life, and now a fully dedicated student on a new journey. And he loved it. He was excited to phone home and share with his mother his newfound college status and success. And he said, "Mom, you need to be doing this. There are many adults in my class, many moms just like you, Mom, who are headed back to school. It's never too late, Mom. You should give my school a try." His mother was thrilled that her son was taking on the challenge of earning a college degree while also pursuing his career goals in the military. Typical Jeremy, she thought, as she ended the phone call with him. But she knew her son was right. Jeremy was new to the college experience, but he found the support of his faculty and the resources to be helpful and encouraging for a 28-year-old soldier like himself. Jeremy was only 6 months into his educational journey when it was interrupted by a no-notice deployment to Iraq for what would now be his second deployment into that war zone. But he also knew that in the green zone, that safe space, he would be able to tap into satellite internet in hopes of continuing his studies. That's what his buddies had done, and that's what he hoped to do. Sadly, Jeremy never graduated with his degree. While a full-time student with us and a full-time soldier in the service of our great nation, he lost his life with 2 of his 3 other teammates on May the 26th, 2010, on the battlefield in Iraq. It takes a great while for a family to recover from such a loss, and a mother never does. The sad truth of war is that for every headstone that honors a fallen hero, each of those heroes has a mom. Jeremy was buried with his Purple Heart Medal in his home state of Texas with full military honors, his last military award for his ultimate sacrifice. Jeremy's mother was notified, and she flew, as fate would have it, on her birthday to receive her son's body. Her oldest son was gone. But his spirit lived on. And eventually, his mother, now a Gold Star mother, did enroll in an online college program. The term Gold Star Mother is not a title that any mother wants, as the symbolism, the recognition is just as I've shared. It's a mother who's lost her child to the battlefield of war. So this Gold Star mother continued at her son's example to take college classes along with our university. Jeremy had been a student with us, and now his mother is here with us. It was life-changing in that she knew her son would be proud to know she was trying and that she had found a university that would do just that. Let her try. It was a positive experience for her in an otherwise chaotic time in her life. As a student, she was selected to work part-time for us. And as a graduate, she was hired by us. Today, this Gold Star mother works full-time in student support role here with us at UAGC. In an effort to encourage our military-affiliated students, she and another university employee founded our first student military leadership club, a club whose sole purpose was to bring together our military-affiliated students. This club was so successful that after a few years, it moved from club status to becoming a recognized chapter of the Student Veterans of America National Association here at UAGC this past March. In May of this year, we hosted our first ever Star Memorial Walk event honoring our nation's fallen heroes around Memorial Day weekend and dedicated the event to our student, our hero, Specialist Jeremy Ruiz, United States Army, for his ultimate sacrifice. I want you to know that out of all of your students, when you have an active duty student in your class, much will be demanded of them. And it is the only occupation that I know of that can lead them to a battlefield and fulfilling that promise, that oath of service, while at the same time, they could be in your online classroom. I tell you this because when we create learning environments that let students try, when they're encouraged, they become encouraging in their own lives. I can only imagine the possibilities that can come when we work with students and let them try. You never know who is in your online class. A soldier, a sailor, an airman, a Marine, a Coast Guard, or even Space Force, or a Gold Star mom. You never know who's showing up to try. Let them try. Damon Lopez, in his book, No Excuses University, said, "For some children, the only hope to escape a life of poverty is found through the front gates of a school that cares." My department here at the university has had a professional relationship with Mr. Lopez and his organization, No Excuses University, since he first wrote those words back in 2013. And now, more than a decade later, out of that relationship has come our mantra for teaching and leading students, our culture of care. Let them try. This is important because Mr. Lopez points out our goal as educators is to give students the academic ability to change their place in life into something more for them and their loved ones. I had another active duty student post this in her final course project just this past session. Many individuals join the military to escape to a better life and future. Let them try. I want you to leave here today with a watchful eye within your course, and especially in the introductions, watching for those military-affiliated students. Some will be veterans. Some will be spouses. Some will be on active duty. Some may even be Gold Star moms. But all of them want to try. Let them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Please allow us to take a moment to pause in reflection on Jeremy and his story. Thank you. Jackie, thank you for sharing Jeremy's story, his mother's story, and bringing through their stories and emphasis on the well-being of our active military and military-affiliated students here at UAGC. According to recent counts, UAGC, I believe I wrote this down correctly, has the third highest enrollment for military-affiliated students in higher education institutions across the country. And Heather, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. Jackie, if you can go to the next slide. One of the things we have available here at UAGC is something Jackie mentioned throughout his talk, and we're going to discuss further in our open discussion here, is the Green Zone certification. This is open to all. For those of you that are here as a UAGC community member, you can take this through your HR portal and Workday. For all others, you can use this link, and I'll stick it in the chat now, and we'll also share it later to take the Green Zone training. It really walks you through all of the different components and resources and ways in which we specifically support military affiliated students and the specific policies and procedures relating to our military affiliated population here at UAGC. Jackie, if you can go to the next slide, please. As I catch my breath here. For those of you here today, we are opening up our chat lines to consider your takeaways from today's story and framing our discussion. What are you currently doing in your practice to support military affiliated student success? And what are you inspired to do next? Please start sharing your impressions, your ideas, and perhaps your new approach in the chat, and be sure your chat is set to everyone. We'd also love to hear from you. To share with us using your audio, simply raise your hand using the hand icon at the bottom of your screen. You'll then be given the opportunity to unmute your microphone and share your story or your reflection that way. We invite you to join the conversation now to inspire others with your story. And we can start with these questions on the screen that Jackie shared with us in the beginning. What does it mean when you let your students try?
Well, Jesse, I'll jump in here and kind of lead with that. The idea here is to leave this space with a mindfulness of that military affiliated student, and specifically the example being our active duty students. So when we let students try, that so easily correlates with meeting them where they're at. And to me, I can't think of a reason not to let a student try, military or not. I can't think of a reason, because when I try to meet them where they're at, I don't really know if I'm there or not. I don't know if they finally got satellite email connection and are in a green zone somewhere. As this example, we do hear from our students and they say they've been deployed, but they know loose lips sink ships. And so they don't say any more than they have to. Certainly, the security of our nation is part of what they're doing. So I take them at their face value. And so I hear from them when I hear from them. And when I hear from them, I let them try. It's not for me to judge or counsel or make them a better rule maker or rule breaker or any of that kind of stuff. And with that, I see Richard has raised his hand. So can you give him the microphone, Jesse?
Hey, thanks, Jackie. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. First, fantastic brief, Jackie. Semper Paratus. When I think about this term, I think about there are really two forms of leverage that promote our growth and maturation. One is love, and the other is failure. So there are different forms of love. And in the context of our culture of care, it's really about, treating everyone with dignity and respect, making it safe for everyone that feels a brotherhood, a sisterhood, in this space of higher education learning. And again, there are different forms of failure. So my interpretation of this is really allowing it to be safe to fail forward, meaning, it's okay to experiment. It's okay to learn from perhaps that hypothesis of what you expected, not quite working out the way you expected it. There are different forms of failure, and one that's not excusable is clearly stated, an ethical violation, plagiarism, that type of thing, that type of failure. But again, I think the key here is to really create the latitude by which to grow. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Richard. Thank you for your 30 years in the United States Marine Corps. And thank you for being here as a full-time faculty member.
Yeah.
We also might consider how might you promote self-disclosure with your students when you're trying to get to know your military affiliated students.
Stephanie Fink makes a very good point, as she usually does. Thank you, Steph. I didn't know that, and I like think I know everything. You can give a student 30 days extension. I knew that, but as she's indicated here, that you can also reach out to the registrar and make a case for another 30 days based on, meeting them where they're at and knowing what you know and being in a position to make that request. So I appreciate knowing that that tool is there should we need to exercise it.
I think it's important to highlight here, Kelly Stewart shares a thank you to Jeremy's mom for being willing to continue to give back to others. You make a difference. Thank you for framing this, Jackie, to help us consider the intensity and focus of the daily intensity of our students' experiences.
And I would like to promote, I know we're going to move into that question here in a bit, but I see there where Heather Maxon has put her email. Certainly a leader here at UAGC and in all things military, that if you would like to become Green Zone certified, she put her email in there for, how you can contact her about that. We're going to put a link as we wrap up where you can go to the Green Zone training for everyone inside of UAGC or outside. If you're inside of UAGC, we would encourage you to do that through Workday, I believe it's called. But if you're external to us and are interested, we're going to provide that link.
So are you Green Zone certified, and would you like to be? There's our final question. One of the beautiful things about that training is you can revisit the resources as often as you need to. So you take the training, you haven't had a military affiliated student or an active duty student in a while, you can go back to that link, you can go back and review what resources are available, who they should reach out to, which military specific, here at UAGC, which military specific support staff are there to help guide them through the steps that are going to be different than some other students who might be dealing with non-college life events as they're navigating their coursework.
As we jump around the questions here too, how might you promote self-disclosure with your students? Because you really only know a military affiliation if a student lets you know that and the introductions. And so I have an advantage being retired military, and I'll lead with that when I introduce myself to my students, and then that will usually create a space where everybody can, that's of that same mindset can come in also and share. But with that, I would encourage you to encourage how you frame your introductions as you reach out to your students to encourage, if you are such and such, if you are military affiliated, I would love to know that about you, and I'd love for you to share what you're comfortable with sharing about what it is that you do. And again, you'll have a better understanding of all of that if you go through the Green Zone certification of understanding who they all are. I mentioned it briefly, but getting them to self-disclose, I will say this. It's been my experience. and you heard me say it in the talk here somewhere, military students are high stream, low drag. They want to know what does they need to do. They want to know what the rules are and they want to get it done. And then they're going to move on to whatever their next objective is. That's how they function. When they feel themselves failing, it's not their MO to reach out and say, I'm failing. It's their MO to suck it up and figure it out on their own. So you should be in a position as a faculty member to say, while that might work well for you in other places, I want to encourage you to know that you can count on me. You can lean on me. You can confide in me. What's going on? What can I do to help?
Jackie. I want to correct something I said earlier because Heather clarified it for me. We have the third largest population utilizing tuition assistance, which is the main form of payment by active duty service members and members of the National Guard and Reserves here at UAGC. And Jackie really focused his story on active duty service members. And Heather, not to lean on you so much, but since you were here with us today, I think you indicated that the largest portion of our military affiliated student population are active duty military personnel. Correct me if I'm wrong there as well.
That sounds about right to me.
Sounds about right. Thank you all so much for joining us today. All good things must come to an end. It's been a very strong conversation with lots and lots of resources and more to come here in the chat. But like I said, we are getting to that time that we are ready to move forward. But don't leave us just yet, because we have a few resources to share with you and reminders as well. If you want to reference the chat box or the QR code on your screen, you'll find a link for today's Ed Talks homepage, where this recorded Ed Talk will be archived for future viewing, along with certificates of participation, as well as the link to the strengths survey, the links to the Green Zone certification, the links to our source material as well. So you'll find lots of valuable information there. So please do visit that website. Again, we want to acknowledge the work of Martin Seligman for inspiring this series. Please consider finding yourself a copy of Flourish. That link is available at our Ed Talks homepage. Please mark your calendars for the second Thursday of most months from now until October, same time, same place, to continue our series of discussion. But please do notice that there will be no Ed Talk in July. We're taking a short summer break and hope to see you back here in August for the next session on August 8th, as Courtney Edmonds shares with us trauma transformation. We thank you for joining us today, and a huge thank you again to Dr. Jackie Kiger for sharing with us and to inspire our next steps in supporting our military affiliated students and each other. On behalf of Assistant Dean Dr. Denise Maxwell and UAGC's College of Arts and Sciences, Department of Education and Liberal Arts, we wish you a safe, healthy, and impactful start to your summer, and we'll see you back in 2 months from now in August. Thank you, everyone.